Most people think consciousness is one thing. You're either awake or you're not. But neuroscience suggests your brain runs in different modes, and each mode changes what you notice, what feels true, and what you become. If this makes you see your mind differently, like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs it. Now let's climb through the levels, not as a medical scale, but as a simple, science-based map of how awareness actually shifts in everyday life. Before levels become philosophical, science starts with something basic. Are you conscious enough to be aware and responsive? In clinical settings, level of consciousness often means arousal and responsiveness, awake, drowsy, asleep, unconscious, because those differences matter for safety and diagnosis. But most of our lives happen above that baseline. We are awake, yet our awareness still changes dramatically. So for the rest of this video, we're not talking about coma scales. We're talking about everyday modes, what your brain does when it's awake and alive, but shifting between different operating systems. And here's the paradox. You can be awake and still not fully present. This is the mode most people live in without noticing. Autopilot. You walk, scroll, eat, drive, respond without remembering the details afterward. Psychology calls a lot of this automaticity, mental processes and behaviors that run with little deliberate control, often triggered by the environment and often without full awareness of what caused them. Autopilot isn't failure, it's efficiency. A brain that had to consciously decide every micro-action would burn out by lunch. So the mind saves energy by turning repeated actions into default loops. But there's a cost. Autopilot doesn't just automate tasks, it automates identity. If you spend years on autopilot, you start saying, I guess this is just who I am. But most of the time, that's not personality. That's repetition, and repetition is convincing. It feels like truth because it's familiar. This is why change feels impossible at first. You're not arguing with an idea. You're interrupting a system that has been quietly running you. And the moment autopilot gets disrupted by stress, conflict, uncertainty, the brain often jumps into the next mode. There's a mode where awareness becomes sharp, but not free. Reactive consciousness. In this mode, attention is grabbed by whatever feels urgent. A threat, a social signal, a sudden doubt, a notification, a feeling in your chest that says something is wrong. Modern neuroscience often describes a set of brain systems that detect what's salient, what matters right now, and help switch your brain between internal thought and external task focus. One influential model highlights the salience network, including the anterior insula, as a hub that initiates switching between large-scale networks such as the default mode network and executive control network. Translated into real life. This is the part of you that says, pay attention, this matters. That can save you, but it can also trap you. Because the salient system doesn't only respond to physical danger, it responds to rejection, embarrassment, uncertainty, comparison. So your body reacts before your logic arrives. Your heart speeds up, your thoughts narrow. Your mind produces a story that matches the feeling. In reactive consciousness, you don't simply have anxiety. You enter an anxious world. And in that world, your brain isn't trying to be wise, it's trying to be safe. This is why arguments spiral. This is why a single comment can ruin a day. This is why you can know better and still react. Because knowledge is not always the driver. The mode you're in is. So how do people escape reaction? Often they force the next mode. Focus. Focus feels like the solution because focus narrows chaos. In this mode, your mind becomes a spotlight. You choose one thing, everything else fades. In brain imaging research, activity patterns often show that when you engage in goal-directed tasks, the default mode quiets down, suggesting a relationship where internal wandering decreases as externally focused control increases. Again, translated into life, when you focus, you suppress wandering, self-story, background, emotional processing. That's why focus can feel clean. But focus is expensive. It costs mental energy. And the modern world tries to keep you in task mode for hours, then punishes you when your mind collapses back into autopilot. So people bounce between forced focus, reactive stress, numb, autopilot relief. Then they call it a discipline problem. But it's often a mode management problem. Focus is a tool, not a home. If you never leave it, your life becomes productive and emotionally unprocessed, which is why the brain eventually demands the next mode, the one it returns to when nothing else is urgent. When your mind drifts, when you stare out a window, replay a conversation, imagine a future, your brain is not off. This is where the concept of the default mode network became famous, a consistent pattern of brain activity observed when people are awake and not doing an attention-demanding task. The default mode is where your mind simulates futures, revisits memories, builds identity narratives, tries to make sense of social life. This can be a gift, creativity, planning, meaning-making. But it can also be a trap, rumination, anxiety loops, social replay. Here's the uncomfortable truth. A lot of suffering doesn't come from what happens. It comes from what your default mode replays. And most people don't realize how much their identity is built here. If the default mode repeatedly tells you, "I'm behind," "I'm not enough," "they don't like me," then that becomes your reality. Not because it's true, but because it's rehearsed. So what is the next level? It's the moment you stop being inside the replay and start watching it. Reflection is not more thinking. Reflection is noticing thinking. Psychology calls this kind of self-monitoring metacognition, awareness and regulation of one's own cognitive processes. This is the level where you catch the loop. Oh, I'm spiraling. Oh, I'm searching for reassurance. Oh, I'm about to react, not respond. That moment is small, but it changes everything, because you can't change a pattern you can't see. Metacognition is the beginning of freedom, not freedom from emotion, but freedom from unconscious repetition. And it's also the level many people avoid because reflection can hurt. It shows you the real cost of your coping. It exposes how often your life is shaped by fear, by approval, by avoidance. But it also returns something rare, choice. Not endless control, just a gap, a pause. And inside that pause, you can choose the final level we'll talk about, self-direction. Here's the most science-respectful way to say it. You don't control your brain in the moment. You train your brain over time. Because automaticity learns from repetition. The default mode learns from what it replays. Attention switching responds to salience and environment. So the conscious mind's power is architectural. It changes inputs and conditions. Sleep, environment, friction, triggers, routines. What you repeatedly pay attention to, self-directed consciousness, looks boring from the outside, but it's the most powerful level long-term. It's putting the phone away before the craving, building a habit that makes the right action easier, noticing the reaction, then breathing before speaking, choosing the discomfort that leads somewhere better. Over time, the brain updates its predictions. Your baseline changes, and what used to require effort becomes more automatic. That is what growth actually is. Not a motivational speech, but a rewired default. So are there levels of consciousness in science? Clinically, yes, arousal and responsiveness. In everyday life, what we call levels are better described as modes. Autopilot, automaticity, salience-driven reactivity, executive focus, default mode wandering, metacognitive, reflection, self-directed training. This video used levels as a simple map, but each step is grounded in research on automaticity, large-scale brain networks, attention switching, and metacognition. And the practical truth is this: the mode you live in most becomes your life, because it decides what you notice, what you believe, and what you repeat. This is Originify, where we undiscover the hidden forces shaping everyday life and uncover the quiet truths behind what it means to be human. If this makes you see your mind differently, like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs it.